Welcome everyone with this hot weather to join us today for our low-code smart apps for the energy and utilities industry. We organized this webinar together with Time Series today, and joining me are today Ben Bruggeman. He was program manager at Nexus. Maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit, Ben.
Yes, I can. My name is Ben Bruggeman. Started to work with Mendix in 2014. Did the selection of Mendix at Nexus. Implemented more than 100 apps in 3 years till 2018. And since 2019, working for Mendix to set up the framework for scale, which we call the App Factory framework, and which is originated by all the work we did at the Nexus.
Cool, thank you. Joining us from Time Series here today is Jetro Borsje, he's CTO within Time Series. I would like to give the word to Jetro to introduce himself, of course, and maybe you can tell a little bit about Time Series as well.
Yes, thanks, Mark. My name is Jetro Borsje. I'm CTO of Time Series. And from my role, I'm involved with all of our issues around our portfolio and how we position Mendix at our customers, for a large part actually in the energy and utilities industry. So we would like to talk to you about the topic today and show you what we are doing in that domain. So before we will get started with the content, let me give a brief introduction of where we're coming from. Time Series is a Mendix partner for many years now, and we are using Mendix both in the Netherlands as well as in the US, Germany, and Canada. And we are doing that for a while, and we are focusing on a few specific industries, and energy and utilities is one of those industries. We are actually started as a company, I think 7 years ago, with one goal at that point, which was getting energy data from the smart meter and use that data to create value for utilities companies and grid operators throughout the world, because we saw that the introduction of the smart meter led to a data explosion which many companies found hard to handle. Well, fast forward 7 years, we are now a Mendix partner doing many things in the energy market, but also in various different industries. Not many people know our company, but you will definitely know some of our customers. A big oil and gas customer, for example, ConocoPhillips, but energy customers from the Netherlands include Eneco and Oxio, E.ON from Germany. So we have quite a broad customer base. For all of these companies, we use Mendix to automate and facilitate their business processes. We do this in two ways. One is that we deliver services on top of the Mendix platform. So we use Mendix to automate all these business processes. And on the other hand, we have a set of Mendix templates. And these templates, they are used to facilitate companies and accelerate the implementation projects. So these are ready-made big building blocks which already contain lots of functionality out of the box to help you realize your business goals faster. And we do this predominantly in these four industries: manufacturing, marine, energy, utilities, and life sciences. And today, of course, we are here to talk to you guys about energy and utilities. But before we do that, I would like to ask Mark to give a brief introduction on what Mendix and low-code development is, why it exists, what problems it solves. So you have a bit of broader understanding on low-code in general before we dive into what it can mean specifically for the energy and utilities industry. Before we do so, one quick general remark. You can ask us questions by using the chat feature of GoToMeeting. If you check send to organizer, we will get the questions, and at the end of the session we have 15 minutes for Q&A, during which we will answer all those questions. Thanks. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, thank you. I don't know how much of you know Mendix and know low-code in general, but maybe Mendix is a low-code platform for the enterprise. But before I just tell a little bit about what Mendix is and what we can do for companies, it's it's about what our vision is like. And I always like to quote Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest of species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one that's most responsive to change. And I think that is the same thing with companies at the moment. It's not the company that has the best IT infrastructure at this moment, but has the IT infrastructure who can adapt as quickly to all the changes that are currently in the world, and they are adapting. You have to adapt so fast at the moment. So with Mendix, we're able to develop applications faster on top of our existing systems. So, and how we do that, maybe we can go to the next slide, is we build apps faster because we use low code instead of just code. So we can build apps at 10 times faster with 70% fewer resources. But we also help our customers that they're the real code experts don't have to build everything themselves anymore, because of low code, smart business engineers are able to build their own applications as well on an easy way with data integration from all the systems that are already in place within their IT infrastructure. So we don't want to tell a little too much about Mendix at this moment, because it's about how you can be successful with low code and the energy suite of time series. If you want to know a little bit more, of course, you can ask questions and we can have a separate session about that. But in case, this is what we do. We want to bring business and IT together. Because of low code, you understand a little bit better what business and IT, what the IT specialist is doing, and we want to enable everyone within the company to build applications for their own. So I leave it at this. I will give the word back to Jethro, to Ben, because one of our most successful clients within Mendix is Inexus, and they've built over more than 100 applications with low code. And but it's not just the platform low code, but it's also how do you do that? How can you be successful? What does that mean for your applications portfolio? What does that mean for your people? And what does that mean for your processes? And one, I think the expert at the moment to tell you a little bit more about that and how you can establish that cultural change is Ben, and he has done that within Inexus. So Ben, take it away, and thank you for joining us today.
Okay, great. You can all see my screen?
Sure. Yes, we see it.
Yes. Okay. Oh, yeah, this is better. Okay. As I said, my name is Ben Brugman. From 2015 to 2018, manager of product development. And we have been able to really, as they said, 100 apps in the landscape in 3 years. Just before to explain who and what is Inexus. Inexus is a grid company in the Netherlands, which we have 2 or 3 grid companies in the total in the Netherlands, which are responsible for the electricity and the gas grid, and making sure that that is available for everyone, so that we have electricity and that we have gas. It has a revenue of 1.5 billion, around 5,000 people who work there. So it's a grid company in the Netherlands. So in 2014, we did understand that we already had really ambitious goals. And with ambitious goals, we see that the whole energy market and the grid companies do not know what the future will bring. So we need something which creates the agility and the mode of change that we can create as soon as possible within the organization. So the strategic goals were that we have to be excellent in what we do. What we ever did is the distribution system management, and we have to accelerate into the energy transition. and we are going to accelerate in a transition which we do not know how that's going to look like. So that needs to have some change in it. So this road to change in 2014 was on 4 areas. We defined that as of 2014, our strategy was that we would like to move all our applications to the cloud. That means that we only pay for what we use, but that the most important stuff is that we have the elasticity and the scalability, which we never can bring from our own data centers. If you think on the big data stuff, if you look at all the sensors, if you look at all the smart metering, if you look at all the data that will come up, at the end of the day, we would like to have AI on top of it in the future, understanding how the landscape really works. This can only be done if you have cloud platforms enabled, which are elastic. And so the other strategic point was the automated decision making. Move everything to big data as well. Make sure that you have key value store integration, which is very important in that part. And if you then go to the software development, we went into a new type of vision that we had to rationalize our ERP systems, keep the core clean, and try to implement microservices on top of them, which are decoupled, having autonomous value, and then can create the value that you need for that moment. So that you not only are looking to a target architecture, but that you have all the steps in between of a transition architecture to move to the real result that you would like to make. And we had this because in 2014, we had totally not a fit with the business. Everything that we did on that time was too expensive. It was never what we promised that we would deliver. It took too long. Long requirements process was taking. So the delivery was as well slow. It was always too late and expensive. We were able to deliver 2 or 3 or maybe 4 releases a year, which means that the business was really unhappy. And the solutions that we had and so far were monolithical solutions, which were internally more spaghetti-like. So that 70% of our effort was being testing, and that we had only 30% in creating new functionalities. So to change that, we selected the low-code platform. I started with that in June 2014 with the selection process. We did a selection of OutSystems, Force, and Mendix, and we made a decision for Mendix in the 1st of September. And then we did the proof of concept, a pilot, minimum viable product, you may call it, from September till January, in which we rebuilt an application at the Nexus that had some major changes in it. And we were able to rebuild this application, which was formerly built for more than 300,000 euros. We were able to rebuild that system twice in a different type of architecture below 50,000 euros. We built it in a persistent and in a non-persistent solution to understand how the Mendix dynamics are working and how you can work with your systems of record and take it non-persistent or persistent. And the solution that we implemented, that we developed, was not only a test if we could really build fast and could build under control, but we really were able to deploy it in a production environment and implemented on production this new solution and phased out this old solution that we had, making already a lot of revenue and reducing a lot of operational cost on that level. Starting the 1st of January 2015, we knew we had to make a change. And if we have now this low-code platform available, we have the ammunition to be very, very fast. Now we have to make sure that we create the organization around it that is able to cope with it. So we had the 3 things that we were looking for at that moment. That's from now on, if somebody has a good idea, we can implement that in 3 months. So we have to do everything to make sure that we can do, when we implement an idea, if we have an idea, we must have our processes, governance, and everything available to implement that in 3 months. The other thing is, we already knew at that moment that we were going to build hundreds of apps at the end of the day, because what we saw that we needed autonomous functionalities which were needed today, which could not wait, which we could then develop, deliver, and have from that moment a really short time to market to have those applications available. But therefore, we have to make sure that this is not going to be something like a guerrilla or like something you cannot maintain anymore. So we had the option that we organized ourselves in such a way that we always were able to manage and operate all those different apps as a landscape. That was from day on. We were trying to set up all our governance in such a way that we kept on having the overview and understanding how stuff was working. One of the most important things to be very productive is that you stop with all the interfaces of the 13 or 15 people you have in your projects. So you have to make sure that you T-shape your designers and your developer in such a way that they do more than one thing, and that's what we call the one-man army. The one-man army with Mendix, able to implement and really closely working together with the product owner, with the UX UI specialist, with the solution architect, maybe some additional team of people. Okay, so in the first year, 2015, we developed we developed 26 apps, already a lot of, more in the shadow IT to be sure that we were on proven technology. We understood in 2015 that the Mendix environment is a really mature environment where you can build stable and good maintainable products. But even at that moment, from day one, we made sure that every app was built under architecture. And what does it mean? That if you initiate and if you have the process in line in which you say somebody has an idea and implements it, and that has to be implemented in 3 months in production, so that we have already the favors of all the technology that we have at that moment, then you always have to be working under architecture, and your standard and guidelines must be the same. So when I open a specific app, I don't know who has built it. My naming conventions are the same. I understand how the interfaces is organized and where that is found, how the design system is, how the UX framework is. So from day one, we were starting to looping and increasing our standard and guidelines immediately. So that was very important. Working under architecture means enormous change process within the architects that you have in the company. Within Nexus at that moment, we were used to do 3 months of architectural design, having 60 pages with all the details. It's more religion than that it's really explaining in decoupled blocks what you really needed. So we changed that we expressed we only want to have designs of 5 to maximum 10 slides, and that is going to be designed with the team in a lead time of maximum 2 weeks. So if somebody has an idea and the idea is granted, then you take maximum a lead time of 2 weeks, and then the solution design should be ready and should be approved, so that based on that you can start developing. And that means that you have to create 2 or 3 high performance meetings that are good prepared, and that all people are there, and that together you are going to build the solution design. That's very important. It's not that one guy is going to build a solution design and then the rest can review, and then we review and keep on reviewing. No, we're going to co-create this with each other. That's very important. So we did the shadow IT in 2015. Then in the year afterwards, we did another, we grew to 65 apps. we went into really business critical applications like outage management. That is storing in Dutch, I see here, but it's outage management. We built up the mobile capability. So from the 100 apps that we developed till 2018, on the end of the day, 45 applications for mobile, more in inspections applications, which added a lot of value for the engineers. And we started a capability program to make the business more tech savvy and make sure that the collaboration with the business was being increased enormously, because the way of working together with the business was not the old way via business process analysts that we had within IT, but that was more facilitating the product owner and the key users directly into our program. We may say that we had already citizen developers avant la lettre at that moment, trying to develop all those prototypes and great ideas that they would like to have implemented. After that, yes, in 2000, we went further to the almost 100 apps, went into domain-driven design for microservices. This is very important. If you want to really make sure that you create the added value, we were able to really be 12 times faster than that we were, and that we reduced our operational costs with 70 to 80%. And that is only if you implement a good design based on the microservice architecture, in which you have autonomous, applications, and that has been chosen at the right, how great they are, or not how great, how big the applications are. We set up the total CI/CD part, and we are started with containerization, implementing besides implementing the apps not only on the Mendix cloud, but as well at that moment on the AWS cloud that we were building for ourselves as the first pilots. At 2018, we went further and we started to implement API, but that's not API management. We use that, but API is in Dutch aansluiten primaire infrastructuur, which means connect your primary infrastructure. And that's a really big project in which you make sure that when you are implementing electricity in neighborhoods to houses, that you have to do a lot of stuff to arrange that, to plan that, to have the engineers there available, to have the assets available, and everything which is around it. I have a little architectural picture at the end of this presentation to explain what this is. But this is really the primary process of an access, creating the ability to deliver electricity to all the houses. Okay, so our business case that we created was that we had to have a landscape that was manageable and predictable, even if we are going to build more than 100 apps and are able to do that. Besides, those 100 apps were, at the end of the day, 130 apps. But from the 100 apps that from the 130 that we built, we only we already shut down 30 in those 3 years, which we used as a transition to come to a better solution, but added their value directly. And it's very good that if you understand that a minimum viable product can already be implemented in 6 to 8 weeks, you know that you then have a value or an investment, which is about 45 to 50K, which means that's the same amount of money what in older days you would pay to get a consultancy firm setting up all the requirements definitions of the things you didn't want. So now with the Mendix environment, we were creating a predictable solution and having that available already in a productional environment. Our business case at front was we are going to develop 12 times faster. It was not that Mendix said you have the ability. No, we said we are going to do that. Why did we say that? We did say that because if you say I'm going to be twice as fast, then you do that by just working harder and get maybe some additional stuff arranged, and then you manage that, and then you're happy. But if I ask you to develop 12 times or 15 times faster, then you have to change your mode of operation. It's not only the Mendix environment. The Mendix environment enables you to do that very well. You have a closed loop with your feedback mechanisms into your models, able to automatically connect to Jira environments or to ServiceNow environments to close the loop even more. But if you are having the target and dare to say, I'm going to be 12 times faster, then you will be able to manage that. And we reduced, and it's for on the safe side, 50%, but I have it here for 50% in the presentation, but the operating cost went down for 80%, which means that expensive .NET, Java environments, or otherwise additional functionality on Documentum or other big monolithic systems, we were able to reduce on infrastructure very fast. So based on that, it was very important that we created the continuous learning and improvement. So what we didn't know anything in the beginning, but it was very important that we created our first team, and the first team had to be better every sprint. That's the only thing we asked. It's not, I don't care if the first sprint you have problems, but the next sprint you do it better. Every sprint that you execute, you must do things better and better organized. Innovation, very important. So we reversed the innovation budget as well to make sure that we could do that. One of the most important issues that we had, and to become very fast, was that integration is very difficult at this moment. So what we did was we integrated the integration capability into our DevOps teams that we had in the factory, so that we were not had to check with the integration department how our integrations were going. We have to take everything which is not going well in the organization, you have to take it into your team, optimize it as an incubator, and bring it back into the organization. What does that mean? Furthermore, so we developed, and we called it a rapid product development with low code, and we had all these questions in the organization. What about architecture? What about governance? What about co-creation? We had to really make sure that all those questions were being answered, and that we brought back all these different roles that we had within an Nexus, over 14 roles, and bring those back to a 6 to 8 specialists team that we would like to have. So when we ramped up the teams, what we did was the first team started, and after that the first team developed their first apps, and after 3 months we just split the team. And just as in biology, you can say that all the knowledge and all the way of working and the thoughts that we have and where we stand for is being splitted, so that you create the next team that has the same ability. And if you do that every 3 to 4 months, after 1.5 years, you have 8 teams who are doing exactly the same, using the same standard and guidelines, and that was the trick to really ramp up fast. We had this new development paradigm up and running, and to make sure that you were able to so that the management, the C-level engagement that we had as of the first day, we had this, the CIO and the C-level managers from the business as of day one supporting us, but we had to promise them, being a grid company, that we didn't make a mess out of it. So we went fast where possible and sound where we could, but always under an applicable architectural agreements. And that was the biggest step that we made. We were able to transform our architectural department in an ivory tower designed architects from the 90s to an organization that was really lean, able to implement and develop new designs in 2 weeks, working together. So we made our mission. This is the continuous delivery maturity model. Where were we and what was our ambition? This is a summary of what the most that I already talked about. So how can you then sprint to scale? That means that you have the C-level vision. More than 100 apps, you have a C-level vision. It requires that you work on the architectural guidelines. You have to make sure that you process your new initiatives fast. Don't fail in the first attempts. You fail, but fail fast. And control and centralize in the first stages your development. Master integration, set up a capability so that all the other capability program with the business to understand what is UX, UI, what is integration, what is data management, etc. You need a lot of change management. You have to keep on telling, keep on preaching, and you have to make sure that you manage the friction that you get with .NET and Java, because on that place you will be 10 to 12 times faster. So they are going to join or they're going to fight, and that's the worst thing that you would like to have. This is from a foundation. This is a summary of that part. So this is the most important thing I would like to show you at last, which means that if you are working in a microservice architecture, this API aansluit primaire infrastructuur, as we call in Dutch, or connecting the primary infrastructure of an axis, which is gas and electricity, to the homes in the Netherlands, you have to do a lot. And what in old days we would have made a monolithical system as well. And this Mendix monolithical systems would have been very hard to maintain, 2-3 releases a year, 4 guys understanding how the stuff works. So we knew we have to implement it into the microservice architecture, and we did it like this. We had about 12 separate, so the green areas are all Mendix applications, and that was connected to each other via API management, which we implemented. For the connections to the backends, we had an ESB running, so that therefore this information was put up. And based on this, we were able to work with 6 to 8 teams parallel on the subject, implementing 12 apps, which were working together autonomously. So they were so built autonomously, means that when another application is going down, the rest is always able to continue their work. So that was very important, the decoupling in that part. The summary: Mendix enables us to implement applications from idea to go live in 3 months. We have to implement the can-do focus. Microservice architecture is very important to implement and restructure monoliths. That makes the business happy, and based on that, we learn to organize and have the vision that all our apps should be all releasable within weeks, within a week, and not in months. Moving all the applications to the cloud and implementing autonomous teams, that was the next step that we have, having low code available where we need. So that was the criteria. So the anonymous teams, the autonomous applications that we built, that created the speed that we really needed. So far. Am I still in the
Thanks,
room?
Ben.
Okay.
Yep, definitely. Still awake, even, hopefully.
Okay.
Let me. That's already a plus. Do you guys see my screen now?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Ben, for that insight, because what you've just learned is and seen in practice, how can you scale up from or actually transform from a more old-fashioned or traditional development organization into a very agile organization which is building and maintaining over 100 apps. That's not, of course, a trivial task, but with Mendix and a proper foundation on doing this, it is achievable for many companies. So what we would like to do now is to show you a little bit more about how we as time series look at the energy market and what we did to create value in that market using Mendix as a low-code platform. What we did there is we have implemented several application templates, which you can use to increase the development speed even further. And these templates, they leverage both Mendix as well as additional backend technologies, like Ben mentioned, for example, big data, sensors, stuff like that. What we do is we leverage all of that big data stuff using our own IoT platform, and we put Mendix on top of that to create or show actually all the insights which you can gain out of that data and make those insights meaningful and useful for end users. So, well, with Mendix, we've built several of these templates, as you can see. And what I would like to do now is to talk you through some of those templates to give you a better understanding of the type of use cases you can implement using this low-code technology. So let me see here. Yes, there we are. So the first one, which I would like to discuss, is in the area of meter data management. So on any utilities providers in this call, you will definitely know that once you start to deploy all these smart meters, like we've been doing in the Netherlands for the last couple of years, in Nordics as well, in Germany, you run into the issue of what do I do with all of this data? And once you start to collect all the data, you have various challenges. One challenge is it's a lot. So where do I store it? How do I analyze it? What type of value can I get out of it? How can I keep it for longer periods of time? Because you don't want to throw it away too soon, because the real value is there when you get a lot of it and you want to, for example, do historical analysis. Another challenge you have is how do I show all the insights which I am gaining out of all of this data, and that's where Mendix comes in. So what we've did for various companies, you see them on the right side, such as E.ON and Oxio and Eneco, we are gathering all of their smart meter data, but also their data from conventional meters, which users can enter manually in an app. We are gathering all of the data, combining it, and then we have all kinds of visualizations on top of that, our IoT platform with Mendix, where customers can see, for example, how much energy they have consumed, or they can see how good they are doing compared to their peers. All of this in real time. And the goal of doing so is to prevent churn. So, of course, if you have an active relation with your energy provider and you have a really nice app which you're using somewhat regularly, the chances of you churning away to another energy provider are slim. But another important thing is that with Mendix, you can integrate with your backend systems. So it's not only about showing energy usage, it's also about allowing these customers to do things themselves. So enabling them to do self-services. So what we see is that we can give these customers the ability to change their monthly fee or change their address or their profile or any other kinds of things which in the past they would have called a call center for. They can now do themselves. And once you go in that direction and even make that context aware, so proactively say to a customer, based on your data, we can tell you that your monthly fee should be higher or lower, and push this button in the Mendix app to do so. And then Mendix would tell the financial systems in the back, listen, this particular user wants to change their manual fee to whichever amount. We are reducing call center load, and once you do that, of course, you earn a lot of money, because an average call to a call center for some of our customers costs between the 10 and 15 euros, and margins on kilowatt hours, if you sell those, are not very high. So what you want to achieve is letting your users do a lot through self-service, and with Mendix and the integration capabilities which you get out of the box with Mendix, you can let your customers or end users do a lot themselves. So you don't have to bother the call center agents anymore with mundane tasks. Instead, you automate them away and put the power in the hands of the users through a Mendix application. So I think that's an interesting way to use Mendix to, in one side, give them insight into energy usage, but on the other hand, also employ these self-service components to reduce call center loads and give them all the power. So how we look at that from a data perspective is that we want to unify all the data. So typically in the energy world, we see people changing from old-fashioned conventional meters. Basically, you enter a value once a month or once a year, and that's it. On the left side, towards the right, where you get smart meters, which give you energy data every 15 minutes. So even cases which we're doing right now with real-time or 10-second level data, where you have almost continuous energy streams. And you want to unify all of this into an application where the user does not see all the complexity of the data and these transitions. The user also ideally wants to look back several years so he can compare his own energy usage to that of the past, which may have been recorded with completely different technology. We want to make one unified customer journey out of this. So in the backend, we use our IoT platform to basically make sure that we have a unified flow of data, combine all of this data into one source. In the front end, we use Mendix to show it all and to have all of these workflows around it. Another case, which we've been building for various companies, such as Van Dorp, which is a facility management company. We are giving other stakeholders insight into their energy usage. So, for example, if you manage a building, or if you are an owner of a building, you may want to see how energy efficient your building is or how sustainable it is. Well, what we do is we use Mendix there to give building owners insights into that usage. And for E.ON, actually, we're using this type of technology to also do multi-site analytics. So if you do not only have one building, but you have many buildings which are similar, for example, all shops of a big franchise, you can say, well, these shop owners are doing it much better than others. They may have been taking specific sustainability measures or stuff like that, and we can have a discussion about why is the shop so much better than the other one. And we can, of course, also normalize data based on euros revenue or square footage of shop floor. And this can also be very powerful if you want to, for example, calculate the return on investment of sustainability measures. So if you bought solar panels or did isolation in these big buildings, you can basically afterwards calculate how much reduced energy consumption I now have and what's that worth our while. So that's, I think, also an interesting a way of using Mendix and energy data and making it work for end customers. But besides all of these obvious cases of handling energy data, we also employ Mendix in the back office. So what we see, these are cases from the US, where pricing is sometimes hard. So if you make one-on-one deals with big or with lots of small medium enterprises, you may have account managers traveling to all of those sites and make deals on how you sell your gas or your energy or your heating or water. And pricing may be complicated. So what we did is we have been building an application in the US where we said, well, let's make a tablet-based application which can even work offline in remote locations. And instead of having the account manager on site having to fill in all kinds of spreadsheets, go back to the office, do some calls, and work through it, and a week later the customer gets a quote. No, you have this Mendix application. You fill in all the parameters which are relevant, and the app with an algorithm automatically can determine the price which you should offer that customer. And then you can specifically on site even make the deal, right? So you don't have to wait anymore until you do all your complex price calculations. But we can do this through this pricing portal on a mobile device in real time. And this really increased, well, actually the sales margins, because we could make better prices, of course, predominantly in B2B, but also in B2C markets. That's one. But it was also much quicker. So the time between the conversation and the quote, this was now instantly, instead of the customer having to wait 1 or 2 weeks to get a quote. And during that period of time, other quotes may have come in, and he may have already been signing up with somebody else. So to reduce the talk to quote time to 0, basically, give it instantly. We also increased the hit rate of these sales teams. So it's a completely different positioning of Mendix, but I wanted to stress that it's also really focused on can be used in back offices as well. And I think this is the final example which I would like to give you. A different one, also used at Van Dorp, but now we are actually in the process of implementing this. I think it almost goes live at Nexus, the company where Ben was talking about. This is about scheduling your workforce. So if you have physical assets, such as smart meters in the field, but this can also be windmills or wind parks or whatever, you probably have a workforce of field service engineers which need to go on site and do repairs, for example, or get meter readings or install the meters or whatever. And we see lots of customers struggling with how do I make an optimal planning of my workforce based on all the tasks I have, and maybe also including SLAs or certifications and stuff like that. So we implemented the planning engine, which can do all of this using AI. We've been optimizing this for, I think, a year now. And what it does, it is able to automatically plan your entire field service workforce using the tasks which you have lying around. And it will also, for example, optimize travel time. So it's really about improving efficiency of your engineers. That's one win. And the second win is that you do not have to plan manual anymore. So you also shave off some planning capacity. Of course, this app also comes with mobile applications for the mechanics in the field, so they get to see what their tasks are, where they need to go, those kinds of informational items. They will also take pictures and all that kind of stuff. So this is another way of optimizing or going towards operational efficiency with Mendix, where we do not focus on positioning Mendix in the front end to your end users or your customers, but much more internally optimizing your own processes. Let me see if I can briefly show you something. I have to be mindful of the time. I think due to time constraints, we will send over a demo video of this demo. Otherwise, we may be running out of time, and that would be a waste. After this session, you will get an email with the recording of the webinar, as well as a recording of the demo which we have. So you can still see it, but that will leave us open for some questions at least, as we already it's 10 to 5 right now. I don't want to bother you too much in this hot weather. But the demo is actually about how do we give customers insights and energy data with the Mendix application, but you'll see it in the video. So really briefly, the last slide, and then let's open the floor for questions. Basically, we can do two things with Mendix. One is providing you with services and application templates, so we can make Mendix work for you. And secondly, we can also help you set up your own Mendix Center of Excellence, or App Factory, as Ben calls it, where we can do training of your own force, your own workforce, and then enable you to get the most out of the platform. I always stress that it's very important for our customers, especially the bigger ones, to be able to do lots of things yourself. You should not rely only on partners to do this. Mendix is a strategic platform, and if you embrace it fully, I always suggest to at least have a couple of people or teams inside your own company which are able to jointly with partners, but yourself as well, be able to build these apps and let the platform work for you. So we also have a program for that, and it's also around governance. How do I scale it up? How do I work in a more agile way? What kind of architecture should I use, such as microservices and APIs? So if you're interested in that, we can of course also help you out. Let's at this point open up the floor for questions. Mark, I believe you may have received some questions by now. You may be muted still, though.
Yeah, I have to mute, of course. Thank you, Jethro, for your explanation about about everything you already have in place with Mendix, so you can accelerate even faster than even just using low code. But maybe, yeah, one of the questions is, yeah, of course, there are companies who just have to start, but yeah, where do you start? And maybe I can ask Ben about this. What would be a good first project to choose when you want to start with low code in general?
Find somebody in the business who has a problem.
Yes.
So if you just develop something to say this is internally a project promising that you can make beautiful apps which nobody sees, that's nice for yourself, but nobody can do anything with it. So step one is you have to connect to the business, and you have to dare, and you have to make a promise about your delivery speed and the way you co-create. And that creates your business sponsor, and he must have more than 10 ideas. If he takes you serious, he must have more than 10 ideas that he would like to have addressed the upcoming 3 months. So that's important. So if you really would like to start in a right way, get to your C-level, which you're working in, your CIO or your C-level in the business. Ask him, what are the 3 most important goals we have to achieve the upcoming 3 months, and then think about how you can contribute to that. And then you always make a choice of an application that can be built, and then you have to be smart to take a simple one that is easy to develop and has a high exposure. More often you see it as in the mobile. So if you're going to look into this part, we made a mobile app, which we did a little inspection. We went to an electricity house. We made a picture, put some text on top of it, made a little workflow, and then before we knew it, we optimized a process which used before a lot of spreadsheets and everything which was around it.
Yeah. So to resume, you want to have a small application which has a high exposure within the business, but you want to deliver fast. You want to celebrate success.
Very early, yes, and create sponsorship. You really have to create sponsorship there. You have to put it on the line. You have to make sure that your manager for whom you work or yourself really have the ambition to make the change, and that your organization is open. And that's why I said, don't try to fail in the first attempts, because you never know what happens then. So you have to make sure the first attempt should be solid, rock solid, and your managers should be managed in a very, very well, so that they always will support you.
Okay. Another question I got from someone is when you choose to implement one of the templates from you, Jethro, where can you host them?
Yes, hosting. That's a good question. Well, actually, that has 2 answers. The first one is that if you look at Mendix itself, right, it is hosted in the it can be hosted on different locations. You can host a Mendix application in the Mendix cloud. But you can also host it on your own public cloud or even private cloud and on-premise. I believe at Nexus they're hosting everything in Azure, the own Azure subscriptions of Nexus itself, I believe. And we have many customers who even do it on site. Of course, Mendix is now owned by Siemens, and in the Siemens domain, like in manufacturing, for example, we see many customers owning factories, and they say, well, whatever happens, my factory needs to run. Which machines we even install them behind the factory walls on hardware on-prem to make sure even if internet is completely gone for a few hours, the factory will still operate. So you have complete freedom to choose. So the answer is either in the cloud or on-prem. Those are the 2 answers. So you have full flexibility.
Cool, nice to hear. Another question about the pricing model from Mendix, and I will take this one myself, I think.
Yes.
So what does the Mendix license model look like? Yeah, of course, you have a few options. As Ben mentioned, Nexus chose to have a full Mendix platform, and then in that case, you can build unlimited applications for a certain amount of users. So there's like only one variable in this case, that is the amount of users you can have on the platform. The other one is, and some customers start that way, is just to start with one solution and they want to just start small and they have one application. In that case, you can buy one application for a certain amount of users. So it's very transparent model, but we always want to look in how does your business case look like, what do you want to achieve with this with the application, and how can we help you with this? So we always try to think alike and look at the business case of our customers. One final question, and I think because we're running out of time, but I thought this was a good one. I think this, and what I see at my customers as well, is the starting process is always, yeah, you can always go pretty fast in that case. But how does that work when you're scaling up, Ben? And at what phase are you scaling up? How do you look at that?
Again, the moment that you scale, what is the moment to scale?
Yeah, what is the moment to scale, and what are the biggest challenges what you are facing then?
Yeah, that's why we started to work on the architecture. You really have to make sure that you have a lead architect, enterprise architect that's really on your tone. He's really with you. If you don't have that, you have a problem. So from an architecture point, you need to have a sponsor, and the sponsor needs to evangelize the way you should work in an architectural way. If you have that, then you know that you have solid solutions, and then you only have to make sure, which means only, that you have to create a team, 6 to 8 guys who really want to make things happen with the PO, key users, UX, UI. No project starts without UX, UI. It has to look really great and sexy and very good from the first time. No shitty apps, just directly very nice designed apps, which everybody says, is this possible with Mendix? That's very important. So at the moment that you can reach that, then you can easily split the teams. You hire new guys or create a talent pool and split the teams, split the teams, split the teams. Don't fall into the problem that you have to describe all your standard and guidelines in such detailed level that it's on the end of the day a school book for people who wants to do low code. That's bullshit. You have to really make sure that you implement at a high level of competence into your teams, that you split, and that those people are really able to work in the same way. If you have that ability, then you can double your teams every quarter, and that's what is scaling all about. If you have 8 teams and you would like to double, then you would have 16 teams 3 months later, if you would like to do that. That's really scaling to hyperscale, I guess.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I want to thank everyone for their time, and I assume there are a lot of more questions, but you can reach out. We will share this presentation and our webinar, of course. You can give me a call, or Jetro or Ben. Our contact information is in the presentation as well. Or else reach out to Miranda, and she will get you in contact with us, and she will route you through. I hope everyone will enjoy their evening or day, and I want to thank everyone for their time.